The latest. Thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. What men can do, women can do and do it better. We have been here as Africans and we are subjected to all kinds of treatment globally. When we want to move out of Africa, we are treated so inferior. We need a lot of documentations. We need to prove our worth, the amount of money they take from us as bank statements and visa fees. Even when they reject us, they still do not give us the money back. We go through a whole lot of things. So as Africans, we go through a whole lot of pain when we are looking for something from the developed world. But these people can just come into the continent, move among us freely, do whatsoever that they want. Some don't even need visas to come into the continent. And when they come into one country, they are able to move all the 54 countries that they want if the person is capable of doing that. Sometimes when we talk about it, our leaders always have the perception that these people come into the continent and because of tourism, they boost and we make money out of whatsoever. And I told you that in the fight for freedom in our history, women led war. It wasn't only the men, it's these yellow people who came into the continent and told us that a woman's role is in the kitchen. And we became timid by the religion and the education that they gave to the African woman. If not, we are very tough. The new president of Namibia has finally decided to stand up to these people and tell the United States of America to its face that it is high time they accord us with some respect. If they want us to have visas to go through all the hell that we have to go through to get to the United States of America, then the United States of America citizens also need to go through the same pain that we the Africans go through to be able to enter into Namibia. And this is how it's supposed to be. You do me, I do you. It's because we are not able to stand up to these people. That is why always they do to us the way they are doing to us. We saw that Captain Ibrahim Traore, Assimi Goita, and Abdurrahman Chiani came out boldly and they are facing these people. We had Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso standing up to these people, and that is why always they are causing destabilization in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso.
Namibia's decision to end visa-free travel for 31 countries, many of them Western powers, didn't make front-page headlines across the globe. But for those paying attention, it was more than a policy update. It was a signal, a quiet but resounding declaration of sovereignty, fairness, and resistance. In today's episode of African Magic, we uncover the deeper motives behind Namibia's move, the centuries-long struggle for reciprocal treatment, and how this moment could mark the beginning of a larger shift across Africa. Was this simply about travel documents? Or are we witnessing the subtle but firm pushback against a world order that continues to undervalue African dignity? Let's begin by understanding what actually happened, and then we'll go deeper, much deeper. On March 25th, 2025, Namibia officially revoked visa-free access for citizens of 31 countries, including Germany, the United States, and several EU nations. Previously, travelers from these countries could enter Namibia without a visa, a privilege not equally extended to Namibians in return. Going forward, travelers will need to apply for visas through a more formal process, just as Namibian citizens have always had to do when visiting these countries. The move was framed by Namibia's government as a push for fairness and reciprocity in international travel agreements. If Namibians need visas, so should those visiting Namibia. But underneath the policy announcement, there's a long history of imbalance and a growing hunger across Africa for equal treatment on the global stage. To truly understand the power of Namibia's decision, we need to rewind the clock, all the way back to the colonial era. For much of Africa, travel across borders was dictated not by choice, but by force. Under colonial rule, mobility was a tool of control. European colonizers could move freely between territories, while Africans faced restrictions even within their own lands. That imbalance carried over into the post-colonial world. Today, while citizens of former colonial powers move across Africa with ease, Africans still face strict visa requirements, invasive questioning, and outright denials when trying to enter Europe or North America. Namibia's move, then, is not just about visas. It's about reversing a long-standing norm, one rooted in the colonial idea that Western mobility is a right, and African mobility is a privilege to be granted. The irony of the situation is clear to anyone paying attention. While African citizens are often denied entry or subjected to rigorous visa interviews for Western nations, Westerners have been allowed to stroll into African countries, often without even knowing basic facts about the place they're entering. This double standard isn't just insulting, it's systemic. It reinforces the idea that the West owns the world and that Africa in some way is still supposed to be open, accessible, and compliant. Namibia's rejection of this unspoken rule is more than justified, it's overdue. In a world that prides itself on equality, Namibia is forcing a long overdue conversation. Why should African nations offer something they do not receive? Critics may try to frame Namibia's decision as petty or protectionist, but this isn't about retaliation. It's about sovereignty. Namibia has the right, just like any other country, to control who enters its borders and under what terms. It's a matter of policy, not politics. In fact, many African nations have kept visa-free access in place out of diplomacy or economic pressure, fearing tourism drops or strained relations. But now, with growing support across the continent for stronger Pan-African alliances and self-determination, countries like Namibia are feeling empowered to take bold steps without fear of Western backlash. Namibia didn't stage a protest. There was no angry speech at the United Nations, just a simple administrative change. But make no mistake, the message was received. This kind of silent diplomacy is part of a larger trend in Africa, where nations are increasingly asserting themselves through policy rather than protest. Reciprocity has always been a cornerstone of international relations. Namibia is simply holding others to the same standard. The West may not like it, but it can't ignore it either. Namibia may not be alone for long. Already, rumblings have emerged from countries like Kenya, Ghana, and South Africa, where citizens frequently complain about unequal visa treatment from Europe and the US. In the southern African nation of Namibia, a significant policy shift is underway that has captured global attention. Starting April 1st, American travelers, along with visitors from other Western countries, will no longer enjoy the long-standing privilege of visa-free entry to Namibia, a country renowned for its breathtaking landscapes, wildlife, and the world's oldest desert. Under the new regulations, tourists from the United States will need to apply for visas in advance through Namibia's online visa portal. However, travelers arriving at major entry points like airports and high-volume border crossings will still have the convenience of purchasing a visa on arrival, according to information from the U.S. Embassy. The Namibian government, led by the country's first female president, Neto Nandi-Ndaitwah, who recently assumed office, explains that this shift is fundamentally about fairness and reciprocity. Namibia's decision represents a diplomatic reaction to long-standing frustrations over unequal travel policies, specifically targeting Western nations, including the US and the UK, which do not grant Namibian citizens visa-free entry. This policy didn't emerge suddenly. Last May, Namibia announced plans to require visas from nationals of countries unwilling to reciprocate visa-free entry for Namibians, listing 31 nations, including the United States and the United Kingdom. The move aligns with broader African sentiments of frustration regarding stringent U.S. visa policies. The United States recently released its 2025 visa waiver list, granting visa-free entry to travelers from 40 countries. None from Africa. For Africans, obtaining a U.S. visa remains notoriously difficult, characterized by long application processes, high fees, and high rejection rates. Meanwhile, American tourists often enter African countries visa-free or with minimal inconvenience. Social media reactions to Namibia's move have been largely supportive, viewing it as a bold step toward equality in global travel and as a direct challenge to perceived Western dominance. However, some voices express concerns that the policy change could adversely affect Namibia's tourism industry and investment climate. Tourism is a crucial economic driver for Namibia, which welcomed over 800,000 international visitors in 2023, including approximately 22,544 from the United States. Despite these concerns, Namibian officials remain optimistic. asserting confidence that their country will continue to attract international visitors. They emphasize that the decision transcends mere tourism. It's a statement about fairness, diplomacy, and Africa asserting its place in global travel. Namibia is clearly signaling that it no longer seeks external permission to set its own travel policies, underscoring its commitment to reciprocity on the global stage. There is growing momentum across the continent to rethink visa policies, not just in reaction to injustice, but as a strategic move to assert control and dignity. The African Union has long discussed the idea of a continental passport and open internal borders. Namibia's move could reignite those conversations, shifting the focus inward, from courting Western approval to building African unity. If more nations follow Namibia's lead, we could see a true geopolitical shift. Africa no longer begging for fairness, but demanding it and setting its own rules. Despite the significance of the move, coverage in Western media has been limited and somewhat dismissive. Some outlets have framed Namibia's policy change as anti-tourism or unexpected. But silence is a strategy too. The less attention given to moves like this, the less pressure Western governments feel to respond. This media minimization reflects a discomfort with the idea of African agency. It disrupts the narrative, one where Africa is supposed to remain open, available, and quiet. But African magic is here to spotlight the truths they'd rather keep in the shadows. Namibia's move may seem like a small administrative shift, but it could be the beginning of something much bigger. It reflects a changing tide in African diplomacy, one that values fairness, autonomy, and mutual respect.
And now we are having the president of Namibia also rising up, saying enough of this thing that these people are doing to us. And it has to come to an end. If we need visas to enter into these people's country, the same thing should happen. They also need to get visas to be able to come into the continent. Our leaders have allowed these people to come into the continent and move freely among us, yet we, the citizens of Africa, are restricted from moving freely among ourselves, and that doesn't make sense. This is a very strong woman who went through a lot during the apartheid when she was just a teenager, and who went through exile, detention, and faces a whole lot of things. And this is a woman who has also come into the political arena to fight for the freedom that we began. And we need everybody on board. That should tell us that this is a woman that knows what she is about and what she's fighting for. She didn't just come into the political arena to join the other ones who want to be house slaves and do not want to do everything possible to fight for the continent. She is a very bold and courageous and a very strong woman. When you go to the Western media, they have started tagging it. You know how they always title their things beautiful with all sort of things to make it look as if that what they are asking for is unfair. What these people are taking from us in the name of visa fee is way beyond what we are asking them to pay when they arrive in Namibia. Africa is not a playing ground, and it is not somebody else's backyard that you can just get up and come and be roaming through and doing whatsoever that you want without anybody being able to say anything to you. The United States of America is a very powerful nation that a lot of nations do not want to meddle or mess up with, because this nation has been the one that portrayed itself as if that's the king of the world, and it said the rules so that everybody must follow. So everybody is very careful when it comes to the United States of America. And if you can have an African woman who could rise up to do this to the United States of America, that should tell you the kind of woman that we have. So sometimes when we tell you that this fight can never be over without the African woman involving ourselves into it, you must understand, because certain times where things become difficult that you the men could not do anything, we are always able to lead you to the freedom that we want. And when we are standing up to these people, we are able to stand up to these people regardless of what the situation might be, when the men will be there massaging and looking at how they are going to use their position against them. Namibia president hasn't thought about what the United States of America is going to do, because she already knows the consequences. She has seen what they are doing with Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, and she is prepared and ready. That is what the African leader has always forgotten. These things that they have done to the other leaders are the things that you need to learn from and see how you are going to strategize yourself so that you'll be able to face them. Not for you to look at those things to weaken you, for you to feel timid and say there is nothing you can do, because if you should do it, they are going to use the opposition against you. So if you know the opposition will be used against you and you don't want to do the right thing and you want to always come and do what the oppressor is looking for, why then did you take the mantle as a leader in Africa? Our strength lies in our unity. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we make African great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world, in Africa, Southern Africa, and in Namibia.